In the past 3 years, I helped over 150 B2B SaaS startups generate mid-8 figures in new sales. And I have seen countless times when founders would be spending like multiple six figures heading in the wrong direction and building for the wrong ICP. And there are ways for you to prevent it. And by the end of this video, you will learn how to make sure that you don't spend months building for the wrong ICP simply by looking at the numbers that you already have in your business. The first one we're going to start with is an easy one, being cost per qualified call. And here it's important to understand, look, you calculate it in a very simple way. You take number of, like the amount of money you spend to generate that many calls divided by cost per call, you get the cost per qualified one. And you don't count people who didn't show up and also the ones you DQ'd. And knowing your cost per qualified call allows you to understand what your customer acquisition cost is going to look like, because you know that, okay, if the next one we have here, if your close rate is like you close 3 out of 10 people and it costs you to get a $300, it costs you $300 to get a qualified meeting with them, then you can reverse engineer, okay, for you to add this much in revenue by this month, you need to spend this much money to generate this amount of pipeline. And this way, knowing these two initial metrics, you can basically understand, okay, how much money you need to spend over the next 12 months for you to add the next 50K MRR, 100K MRR, and so on. And that's one of the first things I do with founders who join my program inside SaaS Camp, where I help them build out ad-driven GTM strategies, that we map out what needs to happen for us to hit the trajectory that we mapped, like came up with, and where the founder needs to get to, oftentimes to hit their next fundraising milestone. So next one is we have the sales cycle by lead source. And I made the mistake of overlooking this one with a few of my past businesses. And this was a very expensive fuck up, because what I did never pay attention to is I didn't recognize how much time it takes for someone to convert into certain ticket size from one channel, and I never compared it with another one. And yes, sometimes, for example, just imagine it's all easy to keep in your head when you're getting just couple meetings a week, and you know that, okay, people from here are converting, people from there are not. However, I'm telling you, once you start getting like 10, 20, 30 meetings a week, and you can no longer keep track of where exactly certain amount of revenue came from, depending on channel, this is going to come very handy. Because for example, for one project of mine, I've spent maybe 500 hours of effort on Twitter just to find out, after looking at sales cycle by lead source, that I made more money spending 10 times less effort on LinkedIn. And I'm like, damn, what have I been doing for for so much time? And not only you want to look at sales cycle by lead source, but also at revenue attributed by lead source. Because imagine you have put a lot of effort into SEO, a lot of effort into ads, a lot of effort into cold email, and you may find out that, or of course, when you're busy like handling all these heads and basically operating a lot of part-timers, and one time, for example, I've been working with 12 people on my team, it just turns into a mess in your head. However, when you systematically track how much revenue each channel is generating for you, with you also considering that each channel has certain timeframes in which they start generating results. So for example, with ads, it's the fastest. That's why I love it most now. And SEO is slowest. but also has some other different benefits. Okay, you can see that from 6 months of doing SEO, we wanna be at X point, for example, and 6 months of cold email, we want to be at that point, and then you can compare them. So just keep in mind that you want to go and double check which channel you actually made the most money from, because for many startups below 1 mil ARR, one of the fastest ways for you to scale is actually understanding, okay, what is this one channel where you have made the most of your sales from? And one of the most straightforward ways for you to scale is just, okay, now how can we 10x the results from this one channel? And that's why ideally you would be utilizing some traffic source which is indeed scalable. And my role for many startups is helping them design such. Cool. Sales cycle by lead source. Next one is we have lead to customer conversion rate by channel. I think I already mentioned about this one, because imagine you have like 20 or okay, let's do 10 meetings in a week from cold email, and you have something like 15 meetings, qualified ones in a week from LinkedIn. And myself, I was in this trap for a very long time, thinking that, yo, if from LinkedIn outbound we're getting so many more meetings, this means that this is a better way to scale. However, once we actually started looking at how much money we were generating per channel, that's when I could identify the pattern that, oh, actually cold email for that initiative was outperforming LinkedIn and Twitter, and that's how we doubled down on cold email back then. And this happens very often with other startups I work with. So depending on channel you get person from, you can have very different sales cycles. From cold email, you may be closing a high ticket software deal within, let's say, 4 weeks. However, from a certain ad where the person came high intent to you, you may close the same deal in a week. And then what you would need to do is you see how much more expensive it is for you to pay for these meetings from ads, and then what unit economics works better for you. For example, is it worth to spend more per meeting but to be closing leads within a week, or to spend less per meeting and close them within 4 weeks? Spoiler, nearly every single time it's the one with shortest sales cycle into highest check that wins all the alternatives. Next one is net revenue retention by industry segment. So here I have a note that most founders they quote overall NRR, but don't break it down by customer type. You may find out that agencies churn in 4 months, but Series A SaaS companies stay for 3+ years and expand to X. What this means is, even though some people may pay you quicker, over a longer period of time, you may see that LTV with certain groups is like 3 months, however, with other buyer groups, it might be not 3 months, but 12 to 18 months. And LTV is going to be like 5-10 times higher. And you want to consider this when planning out your go-to-market strategy and when brainstorming, okay, where you want to put all your effort in the next few months. Because if you make a mistake when strategizing this is going to cost you a lot of money. So please consider that. And another one I have here is percent of customers in your SCP. I built a couple of projects with no-code tools years ago, and I made one of the most classical mistakes every entrepreneur makes is, oh, let me ask everyone for feedback and go build it. Never do this, because this way, if you're becoming busy building for everyone, it's very easy for yourself to get busy. However, this doesn't necessarily correlate to how much money you're gonna make from it. I wish someone told me that sooner. And That's how I myself spent months and months building for uncommitted ICP, just to find out that they don't really care, and I just wasted nearly half a year of doing this. Really don't want you to end up in a similar situation. That's why please be careful that when you are building the product, sure, you consider feedback from everyone. However, you don't put equal weight to every single buyer and every single user of yours, because the ones that are paying the most, you value them highest. And at the same time, not only like the couple core criteria which I usually advise founders to look into is which buyer group or which audience is sending you the most money with the quickest sales cycle, and they also immediately get it. When these three things come together, that's usually the ICP that you want to go for, because then you can design because it sounds so basic when I'm speaking about all that. However, imagine when you have couple contracts which are each 50K a year, and then you have and these are coming from, let's say, Series A SaaS companies which pay you for your software, and then there would be 10K checks coming from seed stage SaaS companies. When you see that, okay, just from these three contracts, which are not too much of headache, you're getting, for example, 150K ARR, it's super attractive. But another thing to consider is the time frame it takes you to the sales velocity, because if you can close 10K checks in days, while the high ticket like enterprise ones, they take much longer, you really need to consider the sales velocity for you to map out your strategy accordingly. And be careful adding new to-do tasks to your feature roadmap, especially when they are not coming from this ICP that you have in mind. Because if you are building for a certain buyer group and then you have so many feature suggestions which sound decent on paper, and I mean, they look good, and yes, they would get you further with your product. However, it might be that your ideal core audience that you are building this for, they prioritize something you are overlooking. And that's how you can save yourself so much runway, simply by building what needs to be built at the right moment of time. Because again, you're never gonna have the perfect product that has everything. And on that, appreciate you watching this video. And if you'd like more stuff on this topic, I shared a couple insights inside my Telegram channel, the link to which you can find under this video. Talk soon.